Okay, so this is just a short video to walk you through once we're at the point of needing to shelve your team. If your team is done collecting data, we've gone through some of the data quality assurance, quality control stuff in SurveyCTO, and then the next steps are you're done collecting, and you maybe you're collecting again in the future, but it's time to put your team on the shelf. So we're not, you're not spending additional funds each month to have a team that's not active. But before we do that, we want to check on a couple things in SurveyCTO. So what I'm going to show you is what it looks like, a couple steps that we can do, that you would want to do before we put your team on the shelf. Because as soon as the team goes on the shelf in SurveyCTO, you don't have access to the forms anymore, the data anymore that are stored in SurveyCTO that are saved automatically in SurveyCTO. So we just want to make sure you've downloaded all the files that you're going to need for tracking back and understanding, looking at your data in the future, pieces about it, because you might have collected off of one form or another. Maybe you had updated your form, and so you had a different version of the form that you were collecting survey questions off of. All of that stuff you want to make sure we can grab from SurveyCTO. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in SurveyCTO desktop program. I'm running on a PC. It looks very similar on a Mac. It also looks almost identical if you're running it in the web version through a web browser. Okay. Okay, so what I'm just showing you is SurveyCTO desktop. It looks the same, as I mentioned. If you're using it on the web platform, you're logged into it. In this case, you'd be logged into your your account in SurveyCTO. It usually starts off on the Discover tab or the Design tab, but we're going to move over to the Export tab because there's a few files we want to download. I'm just going to show you what it looks like for we just finished collecting data in Galveston. Not too long ago, just last month. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. You could learn about exporting your data. They've got some tutorials you can walk through here, which are quite helpful if you're exploring more. I'm just going to leap right into it. Let's just go right to, in this case, this is in Texas, the Galveston data we just collected. Now, in this case, I'm going to download not just the form data, not just the survey submissions, but we're going to download a handful of documents. And I encourage you to do it in multiple ways here, just because I found that as we put teams on the shelf, we realized, oh my gosh, we didn't have the right form that we downloaded, or we didn't download the most recent form, and we didn't, we don't know where that particular one is saved, that sort of a thing. So you just, click on your team's name, click the little plus symbol here. Again, I'm in the Export tab, and then we want to download the data. I usually go into advanced mode to show what it looks like, but you don't have to. But the advanced mode is helpful for downloading your workbook summaries. So some of these summaries in there, if you had a bunch of summaries, you can see we don't have any summaries in there right now, but you could have summary data in there. We could download the summaries as well. So that's where the advanced mode is handy. But we're going to go to this download form data. Now, this might be what you're familiar with already. We're going to download some records. You see we've got, I'm not going to worry about this other server data set. We're just going to worry about the master one that we've got here has 131 submissions in it. Last one was in June. So we're going to click the download data button, and it opens up some more dialog boxes for you. In here, we're going to do this a couple of times because you want to download the data in a couple different ways. I'll explain real quick here. It defaults to wide format. Wide format just takes all of your questions, all of your variables, and instead of asking it like you're used to seeing it on a survey form, where you've got question one on top of one page and then the answer set below it, and then the next question's below it. That's long format. That's not typically how we analyze the data anyway. It's transformed into wide, or transposed into wide format. So wide format's the default. We definitely want to use wide here. Which submissions? We're going to do all the submissions that were in here. This is important to make sure that you don't have any submissions that were held awaiting approval. If that's part of your workflow process, you want to make sure you go through and approve all those. But we're going to go into all submissions. We want to download all of these. And what format do you want to use? We can do it in whatever format you're interested in. I tend to go with Excel, but or SPSS, the save ones. CSV works as well. I've used all three. I'm here just to test them out. Actually, let me try Stave here because I'm using Stata. And Stata has a very easy way for all of my data analysis, has a very easy way to import SPSS files, but you could use any of them. So let's say you're using the .sav because you're also using Stata or SPSS. And now you want to click on the export files. Now it's going to open up a new window. So I think I'm going to have to do a new share here. Yep, a new share. It's going to open up a new window here in the desktop platform. I think it does the same thing, or maybe it opens a new tab in the web version. And this is the Data Explorer, but it's gonna give you some files to download. So here is the save file. If you had selected XLS as your file type, or CSV, that would be the first file right here. So this is all of your data, the exported data that you would download. So you click this as a hot link. You can see my cursor turns to a hand over it, so you can click it. You would download that one. If you've made any corrections, let's say part of your workflow is you go through and make corrections in there, it's going to download a correction log and tell you, what form it was, what variable, what date, who did the corrections, those sorts of things. Those are all handy. So definitely grab those. And an export report. Those are just handy to have. So these are the three I definitely suggest you download in wide format. But if you wanted to do these both in save file and in an XLS format and in CSV, you do this same process 3 different times, just selecting at the previous screen, those different options. But here's where we want to make sure that we're getting more than just the data itself. We want to probably also download a printable version of your form. And here, I suggest if you want to have 2 copies of this printable version of your form, that you include one that without these checkboxes, without relevance expressions, without constraints, and then you download that file. And then you do it again. It'll just give you a download in wherever your download folder is at, or you can specify it. But then do it again and select these boxes, because you may want to have some of these relevance expressions and the constraints on there. Now, the relevance expressions and constraints, if you haven't used them too much, the relevance expressions just says, when do you, it's basically like the question logic. When do you have this question pop up? So it might be that you have some questions that are asked as part of the relevance logic that you don't have those anymore. If somebody answers a particular way, if they answered yes, then skip these next 4 questions and go to this other one, that sort of a thing. Now the constraints are, and these are all built into the Excel form definition sheet that we use in SurveyCTO. The next one is the constraints one. And this constraints is, for example, you only want the numbers to be between 18 and 125. If we're saying age, you don't want somebody to accidentally put in an age of 199 when they were actually 99. So those are those kind of constraint messages. Those are built into the form definition Excel sheet. So this is why I suggest you download those and download those at the same time. Now, let me close this particular box. I think it should stop the screen share. And let me share again back to the other box, because I'm going to select download form data, and I'm going to select it instead of SAV. I'm going to say it's Excel, and then export files. And what's going to happen, and I'll reshare screen here. Now, reshare. Here we go. Now, this is the download screen that pops up. So you'll notice the same kind of things. We've got the data itself moved from long to wide, but you could also download it in long format if you wanted to have that saved for some reason. It's got the correction log, and then the same export report here. Those are the same things, just in different file format. But what we have down here is we've got a couple different options. Before, we had a printable option, which is still there, but we have a couple others. So when you download as, I think it's CSV and in Excel formats, it gives you a couple other options to download stuff. So the printable version, same thing there, what we just walked through. But now it has mail merge templates. So if you were, say, wanting to follow up, you had addresses of people that you surveyed, or some email address, something like that, and you wanted to follow up, you could download a mail merge template, which are handy for those things. I haven't tinkered with these because we don't have need for those right now, but it might be something of interest to you. But here's what is helpful for me or for you if you're not using SPSS. This Stata do template, these do files. Basically, what happens here is if you are using Stata for your data analysis, SurveyCTO has built into it already a whole bunch of code in a do script. A do script is like an executable script that says do these particular things, analyze it in this way, trim in this way, make sure this is labeled as, you know, a text variable versus a number, numeric, those kinds of things. And that's a super handy one to have. So you just want to make sure what format are you getting the data in. In this case, it's wide. I haven't checked this group names one only because we don't have any grouped ones so far. I want an English, and then you would specify what folder do you want this to be in. And it's not super straightforward, but this is where you're going to basically download the CSV data and the Stata files so that the Stata is going to file. It's super handy. It already has, I don't remember, scores and scores of lines of code sort of pre-populated for you to say what is it doing to the Excel file to make it handleable in Stata. So you would just select this. In my case, you know, I went into my Windows Finder, Windows Explorer, and figured out what folder I wanted to go in, and I just copied and pasted that whole root path here for where I want these files to be saved. That's an important piece for you to do. Maybe it's just the downloads at the moment, but because it'll write the code for you, the Stata code, to show those things, and then you just click download, and now you've got a Stata do file, which says, you know, here's the data directory, use this particular file. When you're first using the XLS file or the CSV file, we're going to handle it in this way. We're going to label all these columns. It's really, really handy to have those things. So this is something I definitely suggest for you to download. So again, starting depending on at the previous screen, download. This is again in the Explorer, Data Explorer tab, which is it's the fourth tab, I think, when you're in SurveyCTO. And selecting what file format you want to download it in. If you download it in an SAV, which is the SPSS native file format, you will still have these options here, the regular data, the correction log, the export, and you'll have printable version. But if you select the other two options, CSV or XLSX, then you have these other mail merge and Stata do template, which are really handy to get started. So you have a file of how you're you know, handling all of the data. It's already pre-populated for you. Okay, let's see here. There's a couple other things we'll want to download. And I'm going to stop sharing that one and go back to sharing here in the data sets. Give me a second to remember. Okay, I'm remembering now. Where to find these? Okay, so one of the things I mentioned was that when you're downloading your data, you want to download more than just the data. In the advanced mode, if you've had any data summaries that you've created these reports in SurveyCTO, created some, they would appear here, and you could download those offline. Download workbook definition for looking at some of those summaries offline. We're in the export tab. The other thing you want to make sure you do, you want to go back into your design tab here, and you know, scroll down. There's some stuff about the design if you wanted to watch any videos, tutorials, you know, look through those kinds of things about form definition. But at this point, presumption is you have some familiarity with those form definitions and you've completed your work. So in this case, I would come back over here to my team here in SurveyCTO, and I would download the most recent form definition. If you've made changes, some people make changes online to the web definition through the web access to SurveyCTO to the form definition. So you just want to make sure you download the most recent version. In this case, it was deployed at this date and time, and it's the most recent one that was used. I would be downloading this form definition as well. And you can say, well, which one do you want? I want a printable version. Do I want the form files? Again, here's these sorts of options. Mail merge templates, Stata do. I click on most of those just to have, haven't used the mail merge, but these, you want printable version, you want the form files, you want the stata do files if you're going to be analyzing data and stata. Okay, I think that covers it for the download stuff. So you want to do this before we shelve your team. So you may communicate with me and say, our team's done collecting data. We've downloaded the data set. But I just wanted to orient you toward these other things that can be quite valuable to download, particularly if you're wanting to track back and say, what did I do? Which form definition did I use? Well, there's a sheet in there, or a field rather, in your form definition, not in the form definition, in the data download, that tells you a column, a variable that tells you which form definition version you were using, because you might have collected under 3 different forms that you updated throughout. And that's helpful to know. So you can download the form definitions, the most recent ones. Maybe you've kept them on your end, which is fine. You've already kept track of those in however you keep track of your files and your multiple versions, but it's helpful to have those access to those things. Okay, I think that covers it. We'll see you next time.